everyone, and welcome to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast, the official podcast of your New Orleans Pelicans, as the preseason is finally here. Ready to get basketball underway, but as you can tell, we got a little in New Orleans, a little down under. Jim Eichenhofer, Pelicans.com, joining me. And as you can see, the koala is joining Andrew Lopez, literally down under. Little bit of a time difference, sir. Good to see you. And who's your friend?
Just a little bit. This little guy was waiting for us in our rooms. Everything has been first class here so far in Melbourne for the NBA NBL Melbourne series. Obviously, Pels are here. We have got a practice under our belts. We've gotten less jet lag than we were 48 hours ago when we touched down. Is it four? I don't even know if it's 48 hours at this point. It's been a lot. It's been a great journey so far, and being able to experience Melbourne just a little bit and kind of get to the practice facility, see these guys kind of get to work. It's been good so far.
You mentioned the welcome that the country has given you in the NBL that they gave the Pelicans. Do you have a feel for some of the other activities that the team is going to be able to partake in besides playing basketball in these two preseason games in Australia?
Yeah. So there was a kind of a welcome event last night. If you've seen the social post on Pels, it's kind of a nicer outfit kind of evening, a gala, if you will. Some of the Pels were rating their own outfits. Some of the teammates even came in. That was a little clip on social. But outside of that, initially it didn't seem like was going to be much. I know Z kind of mentioned it the other day. He wants to kind of explore as much as we can. A lot of people are trying to explore as much as we can, but you do have, we landed on Tuesday. You kind of had a little bit of free time that day. Wednesday practice, and then the gala last night. Thursday you have an open practice. Friday, obviously a basketball game to play. Saturday practice and a fan event. Sunday a basketball game, and then we're getting out of here. So it was a little bit kind of man, when do you really get to experience Melbourne? But kind of adjusted some things. I know some of the family members who were on the trip and some of the staff members yesterday got to go to the zoo. Players will get a kind of chance to do that today. Still kind of get to go out and experience some dinners and things like that and kind of, enjoy this fantastic weather. I'll tell you this, it's been 50s and 60s the whole time here. It has been absolutely amazing.
Must be
nice. It's a 5 and then a 0. I know we're not used to that.
No.
So it is a 5 and then a 0. It's incredible. I suggest you try.
I got sometime. A 1 and a double 0 getting into the car to go pick up the kid earlier today. 100 degrees was in my car. Yeah.
Absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
So using these nice hoodies that I have over here, it's been great to actually wear one. So, but it was the welcome. I'll tell you this, just the media that were at the first practice and all of the cameras and hearing what it meant to the NBL and to Melbourne and to the state of Victoria about us being here, about the Pels being here, about the NBA being here, was kind of incredible. And you realize that they're trying to grow this sport. One of their media members asked Z about, is this, do you guys think the NBL is the second best league in the world? Obviously they're trying to fight for status against some of the European leagues, and Zion's answer was about as good as it could be. He's like, well, they've shown me a lot of love so far, so I have no problem saying the NBL is the second best league in the world right now because of how much love that we have been shown since we have been here. So it really has been exciting. I'm looking forward to some more of these events, but I will say it has been first class so far, and the fact that you can kind of feel the excitement around the team.
I had written about how on Media Day, Gus and I and Todd Graffinini talked to some of the players about the Australia trip, and several of them seem to be the most interested in the animal activity in Australia. So, I mean, it's cool that they got to go to the zoo. I'm not sure if they're going to actually get out in the outback and see some animals that way.
Don't think we're going to get there. Don't think we're going to be that far in.
But speaking of which, I know a lot of people, you mentioned social media earlier. I know a lot of people saw on the Pelicans social media that the rookies were actually wearing safari outfits. And I was wondering, from being around them and being on the flight, and I noticed also, credit to them, they were still wearing them, it appears, on arrival in Australia. They didn't take them off and change it to something else. But from being around them, which ones you think embraced the safari outfit and enjoyed it the most in their experience?
I will say it wasn't even something that they had to put on like at the facility, because I remember I was sitting on the bus back in New Orleans ready to take off to go to the airport, and I want to say it was Christian Shoemate who like got out of his car or out of his vehicle, whoever he was riding with, and he already had it on. I was like, wow, that's an interesting choice. I'm just thinking that's I don't know. I was like, okay, maybe that's was him. And then I want to say Hunter Dickinson kind of came out next, and I was like, oh, this is a thing. Um, but I think all of them did. I mean, to their credit, like you said, to their credit, uh, the, the entire plane ride, uh, kind of saw some of those guys kind of walking around on the plane. Still had it on the plane. When we touched down, they had that. I mean, it's fun, and it's kind of some light things like that kind of could kind of help you kind of realize like, look, this is still fun. This is still what we're doing, and kind of um, knowing that these guys can kind of embrace this part of it a little bit was nice to watch. But all of them really kind of kept it up. I mean, none of the guys really kind of fought it. It was just kind of like, hey, this is a thing we got to do, and we're gonna keep doing it.
Yep. One of the things that we're going to get into, obviously, Andrew, some of the things that you want to see, right? When the games get played here, 2 games in Australia before you all head on over. We'll close with that, because to get to that point, it's basically what you, Jim, and myself got to see for a couple of days here in New Orleans last week, which I almost kind of want to put the cart in front of the horse a little bit, because am I wrong to think that the extension of what we saw, a competitive camp, and we'll get into the details here in a second, but I just saw the video the team posted a little bit ago, and Jose Alvarado closing out a practice and, kind of saying, hey, I love the way Zion practiced. And it feels like it is a business trip, as you mentioned, trying to get some fun over there. But we felt a certain way about watching that team, right, Andrew and Jim? And I'm curious if that extended down under based off of the footage I saw after practice.
Yeah, that first practice, the intensity level was right there. It was what we saw in New Orleans, and I think that was kind of the thing that all three of us, I mean, most people who watch of the contingent who was able to kind of watch practice, took away from those first 4 days out there. Was the intensity level was very, very high, and that has continued, and it is something I do want to see when you get to playing this Melbourne United team as the first game. This Melbourne United team, by the way, and I know we're going to talk a little bit later, they have played NBA teams before, and some of those games have been close games. I remember, like, going back to, I think it was 2017, their first game. It was only a 1-point game that they lost against Oklahoma City. They are going to be competitive. A lot of the times the games have been within 15 points, which, because they are in season. So you're going to face 2 teams right now, in Melbourne United and the Phoenix, that have started their NBL seasons. These guys have already been through their training camps. These guys have already been, they are in full season mode right now. It's still the early part of the season, but you have to have that intensity level, because these guys are going to bring it, because they're looking to make names for themselves.
True.
As much as this is a fun thing. We see Mr. Koala here. We see, this is an NBL showcase. This is all this fun stuff. You still have guys on those teams who are going to look to kind of make their names against NBA players and kind of try to maybe see if they could put themselves on the radar. So that intensity level that we have seen so far in training camp, which did kind of carry here, is going to be important when you take on 2 teams who are already trying to, it's not like it's another preseason game where these teams are, also trying to find out what their rotations are going to be and try to get guys back acclimated. No, these guys are ready. And I think that intensity that you have started training camp with is going to be crucial.
Yeah, and I think we saw a little bit of, I don't know if feistiness is the right word, from the Pelicans in the practices that we saw. I do think, I mean, we see intensity in training camp year in and year out pretty much, but it does feel like there's a little bit more of an edge this time, where there's a little bit more motivation. There's a little bit more upset feelings about some of the negativity that has been directed towards them, even if some guys are willing to acknowledge that they have noticed it. Some guys said they don't pay attention to that at all. So I do think that we've seen a little bit, I don't know what percentage it is, maybe 26.4% more intensity this year than usual, but it's definitely been there.
Such a precise number. Jim's intensity meter that he's got, he's clocking it out.
Yeah, I think that was the thing that really stood out to us, that we were up there talking in the, I don't know, are we calling it the nest, the perch, the viewing area for practice?
We can go perch.
We can go perch. Look, guys, Jim, feel free as well. Who do you think is a guy that fans are going to be excited about based off of just what we saw at practice this season?
Yeah, one of the guys, I don't want to steal what Andrew's going to say, but I think Saddiq Bey was a name that came up a lot, and not just from our observations, but I think the other players on the team on Saturday practice, the day before they left for Australia, Jeremiah Fears was asked by one of the reporters, "Hey, who's a guy that has surprised you?" And he basically said, Saddiq Bey is a guy that has a lot to his game. He plays both ends of the floor. He makes shots. And it wasn't like Fears was the only one that said that. I thought it seemed like there was multiple players who said, Saddiq Bey impressed me with the stuff that he did during training camp.
Yeah, I think it's probably, and I don't know how much you'll see him early on, but I think fans are going to love Micah Peavy. He's definitely going to be a guy who's going to, he seems like a Willie Green kind of guy who's going to play defense first. And I think we saw him, I want to say it was the Saturday practice where he was hitting a lot of shots. And I know that's kind of the big key. And, we saw that a couple of years ago where it was a second round pick who was going to make his way defensively. And if his shot was going to come around. I don't want to draw any more direct comparisons between Micah and Herb Jones, but Micah has been kind of picking Herb's brain, trying to learn about it on the defensive end. But I do think the way he plays, the aggressiveness that he plays with on both ends of the floor is going to be something that's going to make him a fan favorite. Now, obviously, it is kind of an uphill climb. There is a little bit of depth there. But this was a guy who earned a full contract. He's not on a two-way guy. We've seen that with a lot of second-round picks in the last few years to accepting two-way contracts. I think the fact that he's kind of already got that main, that full contract has kind of, he's getting thrown in there. And as Joe has said before, if you're going to go 10, 11, 12 guys deep, maybe that does open the door for Micah to kind of get in there and kind of show what he could do on this wing rotation.
It's a good point. I've used that reference, I think, a few times to some people describing it. Micah, just think of Herb Jones maybe when he first started. He's a basketball player, if that makes any sense. I know they play basketball, but he's a basketball player. He's just always around the ball stuff. I thought maybe Jeremiah Fears for this, but he's a first-round pick, so I think fans expect, right? You're a first-round pick. So let me throw a name and get 10-second reaction from you guys. What about Looney?
I think when you go back to Jordan Poole's reaction and his joking, haven't had a good screen in 2 years. Sorry, JV, but I'm sure JV said the perfect screens for him. He just can't remember. It was kind of a brief time he was there in Washington. But what he's going to be able to do in terms of his IQ level, I think is going to be the biggest thing that he's going to help with this offense.
Jim?
I think the thing about Looney, I think that is important to remember too, is if you listen to him speak about his decision to come to New Orleans, he said, I wanted to come here because I thought I have a good opportunity to contribute more. So, his minutes, I think, are going to go up from what he played in Golden State. They were kind of somewhat phasing him out and bringing in some kind of younger, maybe more athletic guys. So, I do think that he has a chance to have a bigger role than maybe people who saw that free agent signing and thought, it's just an added depth kind of player. By the way, one thing quick to rewind back to for a second with Peavy and Herb Jones, even though I also don't want to get too deep into comparisons. They also played many seasons in college basketball. So that was another comparison that I would make between those two guys.
Little experience, no doubt about it. All right, look, so I mentioned Looney, you mentioned Saddiq Bey. Jordan Poole, I think, is another guy that people are going to really see. And you can just see a sense, right, guys, of he's been there before. This is a guy that's won championships. He's played with Kevon Looney. So maybe tie this in together. We talked about Bey, Looney, but Andrew, with Poole, how do those three guys add to the word depth when it comes to this team?
I think the you can kind of take that two ways with Jordan Poole, both on the court and as it fits with your roster. Um, let's start with the roster first, because now you do have some options at point guard along with playing Zion at point guard. Let's not forget that is, something that he can run your offense, and I think Poole is a perfect example of somebody who can run next to him. You can use them in pick and roll. You can invert that pick and roll. Um, but on the court, I think he provides you with depth in the sense of he's going to stretch the floor out to 30 feet. And I think you have two guys out there who can stretch the floor back to the timeline and be threats in Jordan Poole and Trey Murphy.
Mhm.
And the fact that you have both of those guys, then you can have, Zion can have some space to operate. And wherever, whoever else is on the floor with them may be, I think it's having operation space is pretty good for your offense. But it gives you some depth at point guard. Obviously, you still have Jose. You have DeJounte waiting in the wings whenever he is healthy to come back. Obviously, you have Jeremiah Fears, your first round pick. So a lot of different ways and a lot of different combinations you can go if you're Willie Green.
Andrew, I think one of the things that you said, I think brings up a really interesting point as well in terms of, there's been a ton of discussion the last couple of years about the Pelicans filling the point guard role. They traded for DeJounte Murray. That was part of it. Now Jordan Poole has a chance to play a lot at point guard and, take up a lot of those minutes. I mean, going forward, if Zion is going to be on the ball a lot and we're going to see some point Zion, I think it's important for the player, whoever that is in that position, that he can play on and off the ball, because
Yes.
he's going to you're going to get a lot of spot up shots. And I think that's one thing that I'm really interested and curious to see with Jordan Poole in terms of how he fits with the team overall, but also Zion, because from what I've seen, I mean, I think he's been a good pull up shooter in his career. He can, take the ball up the court and fire threes. He can create his own shot, but he's also pretty good at catching and shooting as well. So I definitely think that, those are crucial things, and something that the team is going to have to think about going forward is that maybe it's that point guard position, maybe when you're playing with Zion, isn't going to be, like your traditional Chris Paul who has the ball in his hands the whole game and just kind of orchestrates. It's somebody that's going to have to do a lot of different things.
And that's something we've even seen Jose learn how to do
Yeah.
in the past couple of years, where you look at Jose and you think more traditional point guard, obviously what he brings on the defensive end, everything he can do, but he's kind of even learned to play even off the ball. But also you have now opportunities where if Z's not on the floor and you're going to some of these backup units, that maybe you see Jose and Poole at the same time. Maybe you see Fears and Poole at the same time, or Fears and Jose, however you want to do it. But now one of those guys is going to have to play off the ball anyway. So again, I just think it's a lot of lineup versatility.
It's interesting because you guys bring up a topic that I know Graf and I were talking a lot about, and he was sitting next to Jim, so a lot of those practices. So I feel bad for you, Jim. But I think turnovers, right? Look, let's just be honest, right? This was a problem with this team. Ball handlers bringing the ball up the court, inbounding the basketball, and just listening to you guys speak right there. Fears, that's a rookie. Poole, that's a pickup in the offseason, right? Veteran coming in. You talked about Andrew Point Z. We've seen that. Jose, he's a vet. He's been here. Oh, by the way, the DeJounte Murray, we've seen him. He's getting, close to eventually getting here with the team in the next couple of months. So am I wrong to think, Andrew, going into this new season, when we're talking about depth here, do the Pelicans have more ball handlers that will be on the court? Because I almost felt like somebody's injured or doesn't play. You're like, there goes a ball handler. There goes a three-point shooter. Yeah. I don't feel that right now.
Yeah, because look, we've seen times in pinches last year where Herb Jones has been the point guard at times in getting the offense set up. Trey Murphy's getting the offense going even a couple of different times. I think having so many different guys who can get you into your offense is always a plus, whether that's Jose or Fears or Poole or Z or whoever it's going to be. So, again, I keep harping on this lineup versatility, but having so many different guys who can get you into your offense, it is a plus. And we've seen the numbers on what Z can do, and maybe because you have other ball handlers, you don't have to do that as much. Maybe you do want to do that as much. Maybe you kind of can now pick and choose, and you can kind of scheme up against the team. We talked about at times if this team is going to go big or if this team is going to go small. We saw them go big a lot of times last year, sometimes out of necessity, but we saw Eve, Carlo, Z lineups, or Z was the 3. How much are we going to see Z at the 3 lineups this year? in terms of where he's starting, if he's starting with two bigs, and now it's obviously that was a rebounding problem. Do you not have to go to that because you have Kevon Looney right now, and hopefully who should kind of help your rebounding up? What kind of a jump does Yves Missi take on the rebounding side of the basketball? And so I think there's, again, just so many different things that you can do. And, if a team is going to throw out double bigs, you can go double big. If a team is going to go small at the 5, you can go small at the 5. And there's a lot of different things you can do.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a little bit of a trend. We saw this in the playoffs, and we saw this with OKC as well, that you're seeing teams that have a lot of defensive versatility. And you're seeing, I mean, this was something that was a brief topic on Media Day, was how many teams are starting to press more full court, which is not something we've seen in the NBA. So to your point, Gus, I mean, I think it's probably never been more important to have guys that can handle the ball and create shots and do stuff off the dribble, because if you don't have those guys, you're going to be in trouble against some of these defensive teams that have so many guys that can guard.
Yeah, no doubt. Got about 4 minutes left here, guys. 3 topics I want to cover. We'll close out with Andrew. What are the things we want to see going into these 2 preseason games? But it's the stat that I brought up before. Jim brought it up. 0 games last year, right? With Zion, Herb, and Trey, which is just nuts. But just seeing Herb and Trey out there, man, we've seen them guarding in the perimeter, the length that they got, just Trey and Herb, the importance that they are to this team, Andrew and Jim. Can it even be overstated?
And look, the fact that both of these guys had surgery on the same shoulder, they had their little check-in days on Wednesdays because both their guys had surgeries on Wednesdays. And I think both of those guys are excited to be playing basketball again. And I know that there was a point in a time where, we didn't know if they were going to be available to kind of start the preseason. The fact that they have both been full goes, both look excited. Herb has looked like a different player so far in training camp. Intensity level. Talk about the intensity level going back from before. Herb's intensity level has gone up a notch, and he looks like a guy who wants to contribute to winning basketball right away, immediately, and kind of elevate this team's floor. And I cannot wait to see both of those guys back on the court.
I mean, I think we know from watching the team over the years how important both of those guys are to the present and also the future. I mean, I think the thing that I'm the most excited about with both of them is that it seemed like they both had to hit the pause button on their development in their careers, kind of improvement. Trey was making such a huge jump. I mean, he had a stretch in January and February last year where he was playing at a level that we've never seen before. Unfortunately, mid-March, he gets hurt, doesn't play the rest of the season. Herb almost didn't even have a season, as we discussed in the previous podcast episode. So I think when media assess the Pelicans, they kind of forget, okay, right, these guys are both in their 5th year. They're still at the point where they're getting better. So I'm excited to see what more strides can both of those guys make, because I think in both cases, we know that they're going to keep getting better, and that the player that we see next season isn't what we saw 2 and 3 years ago either.
All right, Andrew, we're going to ask you about what you want to see in these 2 games. Tie that in as well with the rookies. We talked a little bit about Micah Peavy, Jeremiah Fears, and also Derek Queen. We expect to see him any action. So toss in the rookies, and what do you want to see? And then Jim can give his thoughts here, and we'll close up.
Rotations, what are they going to look like? I know Willie Green has not got those set yet. So how does that kind of translate? How does that kind of look? That's probably one. I want to see Fears protect the basketball. Obviously, we're not going to see Derek Queen. He's still kind of recovering from that. Okay. See where Micah Peavy's shot is against kind of some live competition, but how Fears protects the ball and how Fears kind of attacks the rim after how he learned, and see exactly what he learned at Summer League. But it's going to be two tough games out here.
I'm interested to see how the minutes are managed, because I think we remember back to last preseason, last year, the minutes never really scaled up to where the starters and the main guys were playing, more than maybe 25 minutes or so. And then they also had a game that was postponed or canceled completely because of a hurricane in Orlando in 2024. So I'm going to keep an eye on the minutes to see, okay, how much of a difference in approach is there this year? Maybe not just necessarily the games in Australia, but the 2 that when they come back to the U.S. and play in Birmingham and Orlando. So just to see, is there going to be a different approach this year to how many minutes those guys play? I wouldn't mind seeing some of the starters play more minutes than they did last year in preseason.
Yeah, I'm with you guys along the lines of where you're going there, Jim. Mine's simple: compete. I want to see. I want to see this team compete. I don't want to see, well, it doesn't count or the game. I need to see competition. I think fans want to see that here as well. And Andrew, that's why I started off by asking you. We saw competitive practices. We saw competitive camp. Does it translate literally across the world and set a tone for when the season starts here. Guys, we're less than 2 weeks before the preseason coming back, to stateside here, and you're in Birmingham taking on the Rockets and in Magic, and then we're off and running to the regular season. So that's my thing. Final thoughts, Andrew?
No, that's pretty much it. Really excited to actually see them play against another team, even though we're on the other side of the world. And me and Mr. Koala here, we're gonna enjoy it.
You need to give him a name. You know that, right?
Well, we'll figure that out when we get back home.
Mr. K for Koala. Jim, final thoughts, sir.
Gus, you know who else wants to see the Pelicans compete based on everything he said in the months since he's been hired, as well as what the players have relayed to us in terms of what he's told them, is Joe Dumars. So I'm with you on that I think being competitive and playing intense is going to be something that they want to see from the time the ball is thrown up for the opening tip in the first game in Australia.
There it is. Mr. Jim Eichenhofer. Go check out Pelicans.com. He's writing all kinds of things about camp, the games as well. And of course, Mr. Andrew Lopez doing double duty, not just for GCSN, but also he will be part of the NBL broadcast. You can catch it on the Gulf Coast Sports and and Entertainment Network, Pels Plus, NBA TV. It's on everything. So definitely go check out the games. You can definitely see them. And we'll look forward to catching up again right here on the Pelicans podcast. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Jim. Until next time, so long, everybody.